Did you know that 68% of Americans believe they've encountered something paranormal? Tonight, I'm diving into the most terrifying mysteries that science can't explain, and honestly, I'm not sure that I'm ready for what I'm about to uncover. But the question is, are you? I'm Jeremy, the common historian, and for years I've been investigating the unexplained, from haunted mansions to cursed objects. Tonight, we're exploring 5 paranormal mysteries so terrifying they'll make you question everything you thought you knew about reality. Here's the thing about paranormal phenomena: they exist in this terrifying gray area between belief and skepticism. Scientists demand proof, but what happens when the evidence defies explanation? What happens when entire families flee their home in terror? When seasoned investigators refuse to return to certain locations? And when even the most hardened skeptics walk away shaken? Tonight, we're not just sharing ghost stories. We're examining cases so disturbing, so well documented, that they left experts baffled for decades. Cases where the line between the living and the dead became uncomfortably blurred. Our first case takes us to Essex, England, to what investigators call the most haunted house in England. Borley Rectory wasn't just haunted, it was actively malevolent. For 50 years, residents reported the same terrifying phenomenon: phantom footsteps in empty rooms, ghostly writing appears on walls, and most disturbing of all, the apparition of a nun who would peer through the windows, her face twisted in anguish. But here's what makes this case truly chilling. It wasn't just one family's imagination. Multiple families fled the rectory. Investigators documented unexplained fires, objects moving on their own, and temperature drops so severe they could see their breath indoors. The most bone chilling evidence? A photo taken in 1944 shows a clearly visible apparition on the staircase. Experts have analyzed it for decades. No signs of tampering, no explanation for what was captured. In 1977, the Hodgson family in North London experienced something that would terrorize them for 18 months. It started with furniture moving by itself, but it quickly escalated into something far more sinister. 11-year-old Janet Hodgson began speaking in the voice of an elderly man who claimed to have died in the house. But this wasn't simply possession. Investigators recorded over 30 hours of these conversations. The voice had intimate knowledge of the house's history that Janet couldn't have known. The most disturbing evidence? Photographs showed Janet levitating above her bed, twisted in impossible positions. Witnesses included police officers, journalists, and paranormal investigators, all of whom fled the scene in terror. What makes this case undeniable is the documentation: hours of audio recordings, dozens of photographs, and testimonials from credible witnesses who had nothing to gain by lying. In 1817, the Bell family of Tennessee encountered an entity so violent, so intelligent, that it would torment them for 4 years. This wasn't your typical haunting. This was psychological warfare. The entity, which called itself Kate, could speak, predict the future, and knew intimate details about anyone who entered the Bell home. It would physically attack family members, leave scratch marks and bruises, but most terrifying of all, it claimed responsibility for John Bell's death. Witnesses included future President Andrew Jackson, who reportedly fled the property after his wagon wheel locked mysteriously at the property line. Jackson himself declared he'd rather fight the entire British Army than spend another night with the Bell Witch. The entity's final message, delivered to the family in 1821, was perhaps the most chilling. I will return in 107 years. In 1928, exactly 107 years later, unexplained phenomenon began occurring at the Bell property once again. Sometimes evil attaches itself to objects. In 2001, an antique wine cabinet was sold at an estate sale in Portland, Oregon. The seller warned that it contained a Debunked, a malevolent spirit from the Jewish folklore. Every person who owned this box experienced the same terrifying phenomenon: nightmares of an old hag, the smell of jasmine and cat urine appearing from nowhere, and mysterious illnesses that doctors couldn't explain. One owner, Kevin Manis, documented everything. Family members began having identical nightmares. His mother suffered a stroke the day she received the box as a gift. Store employees refused to go near it after experiencing unexplained anxiety attacks. The box changed hands multiple times, but every owner reported the same experiences. Even skeptics who dismissed the stories found themselves desperate to get rid of it after just a few days of ownership. The Agakiohara forest in Japan has this dark secret. Known as the suicide forest, it's where hundreds of people have taken their own lives. But investigators report something far more disturbing. The forest itself seems to be calling to the people. Visitors report compasses spinning wildly, electronic devices failing, and an overwhelming sense of despair that appears the moment they enter certain areas. Most disturbing are the reports of voices, whispers that seem to come from the trees themselves, calling people deeper into the forest. Search and rescue teams refuse to work alone in certain sections. They report finding personal belongings arranged in patterns that don't match any known suicide, and discovering bodies in locations that should be impossible to reach. Local spiritual leaders perform regular cleansing rituals, but they admit sometimes in that forest actively resists their effort. The question isn't just why people are drawn there, it's what's drawing them. But what keeps me up at night is what all these cases have in common. They're not just stories, they're documented, investigated, and witnessed by credible people who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking out. The Borley Rectory photos have been analyzed by experts for 80 years. No evidence of fraud. The Enfield recordings have been studied by audio specialists who confirm the voices couldn't have been faked by the children. The Bell Witch case has historical documentation from multiple sources, including government officials. And the most terrifying part? These aren't isolated incidents. Right now, somewhere in the world, a family is experiencing something that will change everything they believe about reality. The question isn't whether these things happen, it's why they happen and what they want. Tonight, we've explored 5 cases that defy explanation: the Borley Rectory's malevolent presence, the Enfield poltergeist's documented terror, the Bell Witch's intelligent cruelty, the Dybbuk box cursed legacy, and the Aokigahara dark callings. These aren't just ghost stories, they're reminders that our world contains mysteries that science can't explain. They challenge our understanding of life, death, and everything in between. Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? Share your stories in the comments below, but be warned, some experiences are better left unspoken. Subscribe for more investigations into the unexplained, and check out our next video where we will be exploring more haunted locations if you dare.